Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. Welcome back to Real Crypto. Thanks for joining me today. So we had a big sell-off this morning. We actually caught this one live in the power hour. Litecoin started everything, and we happened to look at Litecoin right then. Then Ethereum, and then Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Cash rolled over too. Pretty much all the big ones rolled over. XRP rolled over. It was quite an interesting morning. A lot of people were looking to buy the bottom. I actually recommended to not buy the bottom because well, it actually ended up not being the bottom. I don't like to buy every single dip, especially when the market doesn't have good behavior. So let's kind of dive in here. We'll look at the daily charts, and then we'll dive into the more recent action of today. Like I mentioned in my last video, this choppy market continues. We had a little rally yesterday. We tried to get higher, and then that subsequently sold off. And you can see we still have this very diminutive volume now, down to 16,000 Bitcoins traded. At least on the average. Yesterday, the average was 17,000 with only 8,000 traded. The previous one was 18,000 average with only 9,000 traded. So we're slowly working our way down to extreme low volume. I'm not a big fan of the action down here with the low volume. This gets me a little bit scared that we may have a big drop in Bitcoin coming up. I say a little bit scared. Don't take that to the bank, but I'm not really liking the action in the charts right now. So what we're seeing in Bitcoin is, let me get rid of this symmetrical triangle because I don't think that's really in vogue anymore. What we had here was a come on. What we had here was kind of a rising channel. And we talked yesterday about this breaking down, and that's exactly what it did this morning. It broke to the downside, but again, there's no volume. It's been very difficult to try to get a beat on what's going on without any volume, but you have to go with the price action in that case. So up here we were looking bullish, hoping for higher, and then 10,000 failed, and now we're kind of back down here. And it's not looking, Bitcoin not looking super healthy right here. I don't see a whole lot of positives in Bitcoin. So one thing that you're going to hear around there is there's going to be talk about the RSI wearing off. RSI is down here at 50. We did go higher with the RSI diverging. You can see here this high and this high. There's an inverse correlation between the price and between the RSI. This basically shows you that the bounce here was not very strong, and that subsequent a pretty deep pullback in the RSI based on this most recent rout in Bitcoin. And that's not looking very good, but the bulls are going to tell you that we're just going to wear this down and then we're going to bounce up higher. Could be the case, could not be the case. Really only time will tell. We had a bit of a positive divergence here. Actually, that wasn't even a divergence. This low was lower than this area here. So this is normal. This is a divergence. But, the Bitcoin price really being what's called wide and loose. We have, instead of nice tight action, let's get the RSI out of there. Instead of some nice tight action like we saw here, what we see is big moves up and down in Bitcoin, and now subsequent the beginning of what looks like a sell-off. And so I'm not very bullish on Bitcoin here. There's a lot of people that are going to say buy the dip. I generally don't buy dips. That's not my style. I like to look for confirmation moves in one direction or the other. Now, we don't have confirmation of a downside move, although the symptoms are there that we're going to go back into a more intermediate term downtrending market. So let's get down to the 2-hour and kind of see what's what. So in the 2-hour here, what you're going to notice most recently is that we failed to make a higher high in Bitcoin. We kind of had this level. Let's get rid of the RSI. We kind of had this level right here that we were looking to get above for the rally to continue. That did not happen. Now, earlier when we caught the dip in the power hour, I was saying there's a possibility that we could form an inverted head and shoulders here. That was negated about 30 minutes later with a subsequent downfall in Bitcoin. Now we have a lower low along with a lower high, indicating that this downtrend is a little bit more firmly intact. That being said, we do have higher volume on this candle right here, but if we dig down, and I'm going to go all the way down to the 1-minute chart for this, so bear with me for those of you that don't like 1-minute charts. If you look at where the volume is in Bitcoin, all this volume was all selling volume. Okay, that was all selling volume. Now, albeit this is a bottoming candle, but as you can tell here, not too much, not too much bullish action compared to this bearish action. So the sellers have not gone away. We saw another round of selling up here, which subsequently had to, flatten out before we continued. And now we're seeing more of the same here. So definitely the ball is in the seller's court, especially when you look at where the volume's coming in. So this most recent run up in Bitcoin here on the 2-hour chart does look kind of like a dead cat bounce. And what I did this morning in the power hour is we took a potential measured move in Bitcoin from the most recent high to the most recent low, and then we tried to rally, and then we failed that. And now it looks like what's possible in Bitcoin is 8,400, and that takes us right back down here to this prior breakout area over here. And keep in mind, this was the first base off of the pop-up here. If this route to the downside does continue and we do get down here, if we don't have a strong bounce off this 8,400 area, I believe this rally is definitely in trouble. And this is kind of the second chink in the armor. The first chink was failing this level right here. This was, I believe, your first chink in the armor, failing this prior high at about 9,600. This is your second chink in the armor, failing this trend line here, and also coinciding with failure to get above this prior high, because we did break down below the trend line here. Then we bounced back up above it and tried to rally, couldn't do it. Look at the volume on this rally. I mean, we're talking 2-hour candles with 400 Bitcoins traded, 233 Bitcoins traded, 166 Bitcoins traded, 133 Bitcoins traded. When over here you're looking at 500 to 1,000 to 2,000. So extreme dry up in volume, and we noted that in the power hour too. I'm like, I don't like this extreme dry up in volume here, and then some selling came into the mix. So I would definitely take a defensive stance on Bitcoin here for the intermediate term future. If we don't get a lot of good green volume, we're probably just going to head lower. If the buyers aren't going to step in, the sellers are going to step in. So we can take a look at let's take a look at Ethereum too. Ethereum showing more bullishness than Bitcoin, that's for sure. What we have in Ethereum here is this prior base. So let's zoom out a little bit further. Let's take a look at this full run in Ethereum. 1, 2, 3 bases, trying to form a fourth base. Typically 3 bases to 4 bases is all you get out of a run. So this this being kind of a larger base, and also showing a little bit of weakness in terms of the rally. You can see there's a trend line formed here between these two tops. This failed to get up to the trend line, indicating that momentum was waning. And you can also see here the volume not participating on the way up here. Also, you can see this curve that I had, as we mentioned, selling Ethereum back up here towards 800 level. Someone in my chat room was selling up here at 820. That was a fantastic trade, selling at 820 right there. Subsequently, Litecoin rolling over, but it is being supported recently by this trend line here. A little bit of support coming in there, but if you notice, we also have a failure to get above prior highs here. So that is not specifically healthy. Ethereum failed to get over prior highs. That's not good. This being one of the leaders in the market right now. So if we break down from this trend line, and if you notice, there's actually even a longer trend line sitting right there that we most recently stopped at. If you can see here, we poked down beneath this trend line and we tested this lower trend line. So far it's being respected, but I think in time there's a possibility that is taken out. But if we do get back above this prior high over here at 764, that will definitely be a good run to the upside. There's a possibility that we do get a bounce here off of this, and if we do, you can probably anticipate this trend line here being some resistance. So if you did want to take that trade, you're looking at a 1 to 2% risk, maybe a 4% reward. I'm not a big fan of that trade. Only a 2 to 1 risk reward. So, I may be more keen to let that one go, especially if Bitcoin's looking bearish, which it is. And that brings us to Litecoin, which really kind of hit the nail on the head for me this morning in the power hour. We were looking at Litecoin, and this just looks weak. I mean, this is very, very weak in Litecoin. Let's zoom out a little bit here. So Litecoin put this lower base here. We talked about these 3 kind of big peaks here. And this peak really coming in, we have this prior prior breakout level here, pretty much obliterated at this point. Also, this one never came anywhere close to coming over to these prior highs. It really didn't even try. And that was kind of the weakness. Litecoin, I think, led Bitcoin on the way down here. You can see the increase in volume in Litecoin. Not sure why we didn't get a big increase in Bitcoin. It all went to Litecoin, apparently. But overall here, Litecoin not looking very good. But even Litecoin is still respecting some levels. Maybe, maybe not. Looks like we actually did break down from that trend line. So, overall, the bigger coins not looking super hot here. I'm not really happy with Bitcoin's action. Not happy with Litecoin's action. Doesn't mean we can't get a relief rally coming up into some prior support levels now becoming resistance. So Litecoin could bounce back up maybe into 152, 156. Ethereum could bounce back up into that triangle, which Coinigy conveniently erased. So, Ethereum may bounce up into this triangle. And this is what I mean by choppy action, this oscillation between up and down movements in a very tight range. What this leads to is constant losses unless you're really good at buying these bottoms and really good at selling these tops. The problem is a lot of people want to buy the bottoms and then want things to continue higher. When they forget that their plan was to sell at the top up here, sometimes they don't follow their plan. So you need to keep that in mind if you're going to trade this. I wanted to go back to Bitcoin. So finishing up here, guys, I mentioned Bitcoin choppy, rise and a fall. That's choppy action to me. Bitcoin so far respecting this level here at the 8,800, but as you can see, just very choppy action, guys. Stay on the defensive. With this light volume on the daily, really anything can happen, and we're seeing that here. And if we continue to kind of drift lower instead of drift higher, that puts another point in the bear's court. And then there's a big possibility if we continue with this action, we're probably going to see a drift to the downside. In which case, I would definitely go back. I would probably switch back to bearish at that particular point. To be honest with you, on a big breakdown on big red volume, I would probably switch back to the bearish camp. But keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I am a trader. I move with the markets. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. All I can do is ascertain buying and selling action on the right side of the chart, and then we can make our decisions based off of that action right there. And right now it's telling me to stay away from the market, and it's telling me to wait for confirmation from the market before I put any kind of big money at risk here. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me here today. See you next time.